But once you understand the definition of what ADHD and autism are from a spiritual perspective, you will start to see that it has nothing to do with how you were born or your brain capacity or your ability to fit into society. It has everything to do with your unique soul and the journey that you are on. Welcome to the Akashic Recordings. My name is Annette Deleu. I'm an Akashic conduit, channel, and spiritual guidance coach. What you will be hearing today are real sessions with my clients. All names have been changed for privacy, and of course, with their permission, we are privileged to hear these beautiful stories to allow us a small glimpse into the Akashic Records. If you would like to book a session with me and be part of the podcast, please feel free to head to my website at infinitesoulLove.com. When you book your session, just make sure to check the box that you would be interested in having your session utilized for the podcast. I would like to make a note first that the recording for this particular session is not up to the usual quality that I like it to be. And that is simply because I was traveling and I didn't have some of my equipment with me. And so I recorded the session with my regular earbuds, and basically this session is too important not to put out. So apologies if the quality is not up to our normal standards. In addition, you might hear some chirping noises or some other noises in the background. And for all of my friends in Puerto Rico, you will recognize this sound as the coqui frogs that you will find throughout the island. And when you record anything here, they are definitely prevalent if it is sometime in the evening. So that is just me sending a little love to you, all of my friends in Puerto Rico. Aurora came to me with some questions about her soul purpose, her life purpose, as well as some questions about her family. She has 3 sons. All 3 of her sons, in addition to herself, have been diagnosed with ADHD as well as autism. She wanted to see what the connection was between all 4 of them and why they incarnated together, in addition to exploring their dynamics together.
Okay, so tell me, what would you like to cover today?
I think there's 2 main themes: soul purpose and where my soul comes from, and the clearing of old soul contracts, the old vows, the curses. And the other theme is my children. What can I do to help them in the purpose, and why have we chosen each other? I do know that obviously we all choose each other. They're all challenging. I've always known we were meant to be together. The 3 of them at some point in their development, either in the womb or just right after being born. I'm not sure if this is the correct statement, but they were expected to have died.
All 3 of them?
All 3 of them. The first one,
oh wow,
20th week, I was going into labor. They told me, look, we can't do much. And he was born on week 36, perfect. The second one was a miscarriage. I was actually going into what they do after a miscarriage, that they do a small surgery, and they checked and he was still alive. And the third one, I resuscitated him from cot death, because I felt it.
Wow, okay.
We're all autistic, we all have ADHD, we understand each other with all the challenges, but I know that there is a big reason where we're together. So if I can find out on how to help them.
Okay.
So I think I am in a very good place, very successful professionally. I decided to take time for myself a year ago. During this past year, I decided apart from continuing to focus on what I could do next and develop, professional things to give myself a present of self-development just for me. And after investigating, I went into Reiki. I'm now a Reiki master teacher and I've developed a few things. I've learned a lot on crystals and I had never heard about Akashic Records. I said, okay, that's something I'll put on the list. And just over a month ago, I said, okay, now I'm ready. And since then, I've read 5 books. I've listened to all your podcasts. I have even tried to access them myself, which I think I have briefly, but of course, it would never be in any way how you are able to do. I do one of the things I've discovered or rediscovered during this past year is that I have all these psychic abilities which I have been developing, and I know they can go furthermore. Now need to decide what I do in my next phase in life. I know I can do almost anything because I've always been able to do whatever I set myself out to do. You also have to remember that I'm a single mom of 3 and I'm solely responsible economically and emotionally for them. So I cannot lose that perspective.
What have you been doing for your profession thus far?
So I have been in financial services for 27 years. I've been an equity trader for 17. Then I've done something that is called FIG banking, so a banker for super large financial institutions. And then the last 5 years of those 27, I was the global head of sales of one of the top 100 asset managers in the world.
Okay. Getting your life purpose and your soul purpose are going to be really important for you to understand as you move forward in this journey to go towards the path that you want to go, which is more in the spiritual realm, doing the work for the spiritual realm. What I would like you to do is, as you are listening to the information, jot down the highlights or the notes for yourself that stand out for you. Because when we give soul purpose and life purpose, it may not necessarily be as cut and dry as, your soul purpose is to help in financial systems. It doesn't come out like that. Sometimes it comes up in like more higher concepts, and that's something you understand. Then it's about sort of identifying those higher concepts and how that applies to your life as it stands now. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense. And just when you said that those were the 2 very important things, I got tingling in the whole of my body, starting from the face.
Wonderful. And then also, I just want to mention something to you because you said something about how you've tried to open the records and that sort of thing. It's not to say that you cannot do it, as you said, as good as me. Everyone can, right? So it's just a matter of practice, and it's a matter of being able to trust and know the information that's coming to you. So I just wanted to give you that extra bit of information so you can understand and have confidence in the things that you get, okay?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm telling you something and you look in your own records, let's say, and you feel in your heart that the records that you have read are the most accurate, or that's the information that you've got, always go with what is true for you. You don't necessarily have to take on something that somebody else is telling you. I always like to tell that to people because my favorite mantra is telling my clients that you are your highest authority. I'm here as a messenger. I'm here to tell you the things that maybe you haven't been able to see yet, or that have not gotten to you in terms of communication through your guides. But for the most part, it is you that is going to be able to walk forward in life with this information to allow it to help you through the things that you need to go through. Your root chakra looks really, really good. And I'm hearing you have the stability that you need. I'm hearing you feel supported. Do you find that's true?
Yes, I think I am supported by the universe, by Holy Spirit, God, very much in everything I'm doing. I have a good family, and I think I have been very blessed with everything I have. There's always challenges, but you can't live without them.
They're saying that you have done quite a lot of work on your root chakra.
Mm-hmm.
It has been a little bit of a struggle to find your stability, but you have achieved that, which is why you have gone on such an extraordinary journey moving forward in your spiritual journey. Allowing yourself that stability is creating that space to build that spiritual foundation, which is really beautiful. I'm hearing you're in a space of creative mind and creative soul.
No, I've always been inventing and creating and having ideas. I can't stop it.
Yeah, it's really great. It's such a beautiful energy. I'm feeling a lot of excitement and a lot of happiness from this. And this is something that you have been able to tap into from a very young age. And they're saying that this actually is tied into your soul purpose as well. This is something that your soul just naturally does. And it's something that is really effortless, is what they're saying. It's an effortless thing for you. There is a small blockage in your sacral chakra as it pertains to a past life. And they're showing it to me like almost coming off in little bits and pieces, like ash coming off of a burning wood. And they're saying to me that there's not a lot that we need to do today regarding that particular lifetime. That is something that you are clearing naturally. It's something that you are doing just by walking your path, just by doing what you're doing. So it's not something we necessarily have to address.
Mm-hmm.
I see a tiny bit of trepidation regarding being the full expression of who you are. So essentially, it's like you are able to be that big, bright, beautiful light that you are, that big creator that you are. And there's a part of you that wants to just step out into the world with your arms outstretched and just be exactly who you are and scream it from the rooftops, if you will. But then there's a part of you that is wanting to be a bit more humble and say, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. I gotta take it down a notch, and I gotta be a little bit more humble about this. But the thing is that your self-expression and where you are is where you are the happiest. There's nothing wrong with expressing that and showing that to the world. And they want you to, your guides want you to show that to the world, because it is what brings joy and beauty to everything that you do. Don't hold yourself back because you feel like maybe I don't want to seem like I'm bigger than other people, or that I'm better or more intelligent or more creative. Don't worry about what other people think, because what you are able to do is step into that expression in order to inspire others. And you do inspire others. Like, I see people looking to you with just absolute joy and admiration.
Thank you, because I tell myself that every day. No, it's maybe pride. Bring yourself down a bit, be careful. So great.
Yeah.
Thank you for the message.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, sometimes it's hard because we are sort of taught from a young age, like, don't be too bright. Don't shine so brightly. It is absolutely okay and preferable for you to do so. They're saying that your heart is like a sparkling diamond. And I am not quite sure what that means. So they're using that analogy because they're saying that you have so many different facets to you. You have so many facets and so many different ways that you love and that you show love and that you receive love, that it's almost like a moving target. You might receive love in one way, and then maybe to another person, you might receive it in another, and maybe to another person you might give it in another way. You know how they have the love languages, and they say, oh, well, my love language is this, or my love language is that. It's like you don't have just one love language. Like, you give and receive based on the individual person and what the situation calls for, as opposed to just a blanket statement of, oh, well, I give and receive love this way. That's so beautiful, because you are taking each individual situation as it comes, as opposed to making an assessment of how you are going to show up with a particular person.
Makes sense. I always adapt, and I always see beauty in everything. And when I don't, I try to understand what I have missed, because probably I have missed it and I need to learn it. So
far, your whole lower chakra system is pretty clear. What that says to me is that either you have been doing a lot of work, or you as a soul are a higher level soul. So we're going to tap into that as soon as we're done with the chakra scan, because I think that that's going to give us a lot of more information about why that is, because a lot of times even the most advanced souls can sometimes have psychic debris or old blockages from previous lifetimes. But your whole lower chakra system looks really, really good. Bravo to you, to the work that you've done.
Thank you.
I love, my guides give me all sorts of different analogies for these types of things. And this analogy is adorable. Your crown chakra is like a newsroom, and the messengers, your angels, your guides, they're giving you the messages. And it's like you have a whole newsroom going on in your crown chakra. And it's like they're handing off the pieces of paper to the right person, to hand off to the other right person, to hand off to the other right person. And then it goes into your third eye. And then basically you're able to interpret it and ground the messages, and then be able to act upon whatever it is that you need to do. It's a quite efficient workspace that they're showing me.
It's a great picture because I am an extremely efficient person, so I can imagine myself doing that.
Yeah. It's really cute. They always show it to me in sort of a cartoon form. So I'm just seeing all these like little cartoon people running around with pieces of paper. It's pretty fun. Your third eye is super open. I'm seeing no issues there at all. So let's move that energy down into your throat chakra. And I'm just hearing you're holding back. There are a couple of things that you're holding back on, and it is about things that you're uncertain with. Okay. So with your job, you are very confident in most of the things that you do because you've been doing them for so long, and because you just know it inside and out. With the spiritual practice, with the Reiki, with everything else, it's relatively new. I mean, it's not new for you, but in comparison to everything else, it is. You are almost holding back your voice a little bit because you're still very uncertain. And they're saying that there's no need for that as well. Like, you can boldly move forward because it's okay to make mistakes. If you make mistakes, it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to get new information and form a different opinion. Like, all of these things are part of the journey. So don't feel like you have to know everything before you start speaking, because everything changes and evolves as we move along. As you get more information, that might change how you're thinking or feeling about a particular thing. That might make you see something in a different way because you're getting new information, but that's okay. Don't worry about, well, if I say this one thing or if I talk about this one thing and it's not what I think it is, then I don't want to misstate. From that perspective, just go with the flow. And as you get more information, you can shift and change your perspective of where you're coming from. I want to thank Akula, my Akashic guide. Thank you so much for being here. I love you as well. Thank you to Archangel Metatron and Archangel Sandalphon for creating a sacred space, keeping us in that beautiful bubble, in that beautiful container while we do this work. And thank you for allowing us access to the Akashic Records today. Today, we are opening up the Akashic Records. Thank you. Which questions do we need to answer first? Okay, soul purpose, life purpose first. Which one first? The soul purpose. All right. Do we need to look at any past lives for her soul purpose? We do. Okay. All right. How many? Just one. Initially, I was seeing you place dots on the ground, and all of the dots are equidistant and they're in a circle. It's almost like you're taking a stick and you're placing these dots in the ground, forming almost like a clock face. You keep on pointing at the moon. And so I was asking, is this a sundial? And you said, no, it's a moon dial. They're saying to me that this is a period of time where like people were just trying to figure out time of day and follow the sun and the stars. And you were trying to figure out a way to sort of come up with a way to measure night. The daytime, people had already started to figure that out because the sun was a little bit more easy to follow, whereas the moon was more elusive. And it felt more difficult because of the moon phases, because sometimes the moon was really bright and sometimes it wasn't. And so it may not cast as much of a shadow as, let's say, the sun does. You were trying to figure out a foolproof way of measuring time within the evening and the moon space. You spoke to a lot of astronomers. You spoke to a lot of intellectuals who had been studying this for years and years and years. You really connected to a lot of different I'm hearing scrolls and different ways of which you could measure the moon phases. This is something that excited you. You were absolutely thrilled to be doing this night after night after night. And they're showing me 1 full year. And after 1 full year, you did this every single night. You realized that there was a pattern, but then the pattern shifted. And so you were like, oh my gosh, I can do this for another year and it's going to be like slightly different and I can figure this out. And so what was going to be a small project turned into 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, up to 40 to 50 years of your life in this lifetime, where you just continued to follow the phases of the moon, track them, write them down, write down the information. You were one of the pioneers who was really trying to make sense of it. There were people in your village who were telling you that you were kind of crazy for doing this because you were trying to find logic. And so the people in your village, for some reason, believed that the moon was a ghost and that the ghost just sort of popped up whenever it wanted to in whatever form it wanted to. Like it was sort of this, for lack of a better term, like an old wives' tale. Like it was just some sort of superstition that the people in the village had come up with because they didn't know what it was and they didn't understand what it was. They thought it was some sort of spirit and that it just sort of did what it wanted and that you trying to track it was madness. But you knew it wasn't madness. You saw the mathematical aspects of it. You saw the way that you could track it was pretty logical, even though they were saying, oh, it's like a spirit or some sort of ghost that's moving through the sky. You did really believe in the supernatural and the other realms. And it's not that you didn't believe in that, but you just kind of knew in your heart and in your soul that what these people were talking about was just completely untrue. That's just enough context for you to get the starting point of what her soul is here to do. One of your soul purposes that you have been carrying on throughout the millions of lifetimes that you've lived has been to anchor in truth of how things are, and not from an unwavering perspective, from quite a factual perspective, but not from the standpoint of it just being scientific or logical for the sake of logic. It is taking the logical and marrying it with the spiritual, taking both of those things and allowing it to be exactly what it is.
No, it makes total sense. From things I did when I was a little girl and I've done all my life to a recent paper I've written comparing all the practices of the 5 major religions and Reiki and how they approach exactly the same thing. They just have minor differences.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And that's what you're here to do. You're here to show the world those differences and say, hey, even though these might be presented in a different way, it is all coming from the same energy. It's all coming from the same place. You are uniquely equipped in your soul to bridge those two things. And that is a gift that is so beautiful because so many people have a hard time bridging that gap between those two things, between the physical and the spiritual, between the logic and the unknown. And you're very good at explaining it. You're very good at presenting it in a way that is understandable and that allows somebody to move forward in that energy without questioning the validity of it. When people hear the words that you speak, this is why they were mentioning the throat chakra. When you speak the words that you speak, people know it's the truth. It's a feeling that you get when you know the truth is being spoken. Like you were saying, it's the chills that you get. It's the confirmation you get from your body, from your energy field, from everything. And your soul signature is about truth and making sure that that truth is always being pushed forward, that it is always being communicated.
Makes sense.
They want me to channel a little message about your soul because I think that it's something that I don't necessarily know about. So I'm going to get into the channel and they're going to tell you some more about your soul purpose. So just give me a second. Soul is absolutely unique in what she does. That is not to say that she is the only one, but it is to say that her soul signature is unique in all of its experiences, with the amount of experiences she's had on this planet as well as other planets. She has a very unique perspective on melding the logical with the spiritual, the 3D with the 5D and beyond. Her soul has chosen various different experiences on other planets as well as here that have allowed her to see from all sides of a particular subject. She has meticulously, as a soul, had experiences again and again and again where she's experiencing things from all sides. This is why we did show her heart as a diamond with all the different facets. It is because she is able to look at a particular emotion, situation, person, anything that she looks at, she's able to see it from the perspective of all of the different ways she has experienced it in these previous lives. This is why it is important for her to experience these previous lives. This is why she's feeling guided to go into the Akashic Records, because she can tap into the Akashic Records and be able to connect with all of these different versions of herself and access all of this information and allow herself to tap into that knowledge in order to create something potentially new for whatever situation she is in at this time. The reason why we wanted to channel this information is because it's something that is unique, as we said, but it is also something that is difficult to put into words. The energy that you have is earthly, but it is also of so many different experiences that you've had that it's almost as if you have 12 million colors in your energy field, whereas a lot of other people might have 100 or 200 colors in their energy field, or different shades thereof. You have millions. And this does not make you better or superior than one or another. It just means that you have had that much more experience. And that's because your soul revels and enjoys the knowledge, the experience, the looking at everything from every particular angle. And it is something that allows you to do the job that you are here to do. And that brings us to your life purpose. Your life purpose in this lifetime has been to quantify the amount of energy that you expend connecting these two things, the logical and the unknown, because you have spent lifetimes in the past banging your head against a wall, trying to get people to understand the 3D, the 5D and beyond, the logical and the unknown. And it's very difficult to make people understand or see something that they have yet to experience themselves. This lifetime, you are trying to assess how much is necessary to put forth effort in helping others when, let's say, maybe they are not asking for the help or they are not wanting the help. How much effort you are going to put forth in helping them bridge that gap between the 3D and the 5D. You will find as you move forward in your journey that you will see the people who are ready and they will come to you naturally. And you will be able to have these experiences with these people and they will be able to connect with you and they will be able to take the knowledge that you have and they will be able to integrate it as a template. This is why what you were doing is important, because the template that you hold has those 12 million colors, and you can pass this template on to others that will allow them to have the same understanding. And once they have the same understanding, they can move forward and use that information to their benefit and to others' benefit as well.
Thank you.
I just want to pause and ask if you have any questions about that.
No, it makes total sense. My constant quest for knowing, seeing things a different way, if I understood it correctly. And yes, lately I've been starting to try to bring people into this understanding, and I am realizing and measuring if it makes sense to try to push somebody into it. And I've realized that it will come naturally, the ones that are ready, which it's great to hear it, that it's something I was here to learn, because I have recently realized, didn't know it was my life purpose, but in trying to teach and show people, I'm now understanding that for some, you have to wait until you're ready. Some not even anywhere near, or some are really waiting for it. So it makes total sense.
And the way that they're showing it to me too is that when they're saying that people have 100 colors and you have 12 million, it's like the difference between seeing an image and it's blurry or jagged because it's only got 100 or 200 colors. And then when you have 12 million colors, the image is very, very smooth, right? And so that's the difference between what people have and what you are giving them. And so it's a really big leap between those two things. And so if the person is ready to take that leap, it's great. And that will help them to see things so much more clear. But if they're not ready, it's going to be overwhelming for them. The ability to do this is wonderful, except for when you're trying to impart this upon the people that you love, because you know it'll help them, but they're not ready for it. And then that becomes the difficult part. I feel like you can have that objectivity when it comes to, let's say, spiritual friends, or once you start seeing clients and things like that, that'll be easy for you. The impartiality will be fine for you. But when it comes to the people you love, let's say it's your kids or somebody else, that's what makes it difficult for you, because you want them to be able to integrate that fully. But if they're not quite ready yet, you just need to give them time. Okay?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So is there anything else about soul purpose and life purpose that we need to know? Yes. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. You're a graduated soul, which means that you are one of the higher level souls that you can be. So here on Earth, we can call them different things. We have different names for various different angels and whatnot. We have angels, archangels. So they're saying to me that you would be sort of the equivalent of a seraphim, which is one of the highest level angels that you can be. Seraphims they're above archangels, and that is the nature of your soul at this time. But the reason for the advanced nature of your soul is because of the amount of times that you've incarnated on this and other planets has allowed you to go through your ascension process over and over and over and over again. And that allowed you to be where you are in terms of your energy. And this is why your chakras were clear. You did have to work through some stuff in terms of blockages and whatnot in your chakra system based on your current lifetime and based on a lifetime just before this one. But when you're a higher level angelic, the amount of clearing that needs to take place is very minimal. Are you familiar with seraphims?
No.
Okay.
I've heard you name it, I think, in one of your podcasts, but I haven't looked it up. No idea.
And the one thing that the guides always tell me is that we do love labels here in our physical world. We don't necessarily need to label things, but we do. The reason why we do label things is because it makes it easier for us to understand and to describe things. If you feel into your energy right now, if you feel into your soul energy, you will feel the truth of the amount of ascension processes you have gone through. You will feel the truth of the crystalline nature of your soul. You're saying that it's something you've always known as well, but didn't necessarily want to admit to yourself.
Yeah, which goes back to what you said before, that you saw in my solar plexus, that I don't want to feel that I'm better than others, or that I get too much pride in
right. And that's understandable, because we want to stay grounded and we want to stay humble, if you will. But you can also stay in that grounded and humble space while understanding the power that you have and the reason why you're here, and still utilize that power in a way that is beneficial for yourself and for others.
Mm-hmm.
You've also reached a point in your journey where you don't ever have to worry about misusing your power or anything like that. It's not something that will ever happen with you. There's something that they're showing me right now. It's like you're reaching up on your tiptoes. Okay, what is that all about? She is reaching the higher levels of her soul at this time. She's trying to see what's next. She's trying to see what level is after where she is now. She wants to continue to strive to go to the next level.
No, sorry, that sounds like me.
And they're saying that you don't have to. You don't have to strive to go to the next level, because the next level will meet you where you are and usher you into the next level when you are ready to get there. I'm going to try to describe this in the best way that I can. So basically, all the previous levels that you've ascended have been big steps. It's like from first ascension to second to third to fourth to fifth to sixth. And then the closer you get to this omniscience of knowing all of the things in all of the ways, it's like you almost double back on yourself. It's almost like you come back to the beginning. You start at one point. You have all of this experience. You get your 12 million colors. And then you reach back at your point of origin with this 12 million colors. And then it's almost like a fusion of sorts of the version of you who started this journey and the version of you now. And it creates an entirely new energy. And this is what is happening on a regular basis with almost every single soul that exists in the universe. With each amount of connection we make with the original version of ourselves, it creates context, it creates newness in the way that you go through every experience. So if you're starting at point A without any color, and then you go around your journey and now you have all 12 million colors connected to your soul, you have the experience that you had at point A from a completely different perspective and from an entirely new energy. And so then you can start the cycle all over again, creating new energies as you go along. You're continually reinventing yourself. You're continually creating something new within your soul. So from that perspective, you could say that while your original soul has ascended to Seraphim, you could also say that the soul that you are now is completely different than the soul that you were when you started this journey. It is something that happens to all souls, but to your soul, because of the rapidness of your journey, the desire for experience and knowledge, you have been able to move through all of the various levels in a time that is almost unprecedented. Interesting. Okay. I've never seen it sort of described like that before, but that makes sense. Do you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
You're welcome. So to answer the question you had in the beginning, which is you're moving into the more spiritual work, the Reiki work, the Akashic records, things like that. But then the obvious practicality of doing the three-dimensional work and support and making money and things like that, they're simply just telling you to just keep doing what you're doing. Allow the universe to bring you what you need at the times that you need it, and allow yourself to do the work that you want to do.
Thank you. I did hear in one of my meditations that whatever I do, I was going to be able to do my soul purpose anyway. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah. Because what you're doing is mostly on an energetic level. So when you connect with people, your soul is handing that template to those people. It is helping people understand the template. It's helping people see things in all the different facets and all the different ways. And so when you're interacting with people, that's where that work is being done. Taking it to a physical type of work. So in other words, like Reiki or anything like that, like where you're actually doing something for people, that is just more of a focused version of what you're already doing.
Thank you.
I'm hearing just make sure you're not giving away too much of your own energy.
Yeah.
The next subject I'm feeling guided to go into is your connection with your kids. The first thing they're showing me is you're standing in the middle and the three of them are standing around you. And each one of them is almost standing around you with their hands outstretched, asking for the template that you are creating, asking for that experience that you had. And these three people have signed up for this experience with you in order to have firsthand connection with you. By going through the birthing process, they were able to, from a very physical standpoint, connect to the templates that your soul carries. It's a very unique way to receive these templates and is not often experienced by souls. There is often a separation or a barrier between the soul's purpose of a mother to a child, and that is by design, because each soul purpose could be vastly different, and they are not meant to be necessarily intertwined, although they could be. They don't necessarily need to be. The difference with you and your children is that your children signed up to have every bit of the experience to connect to the energy field that you have. And part of the reason why all three of them almost died is because your energy field as a soul is so large and such a high frequency that it is difficult to house in a physical body. You have been able to do this by various different means. All of us leave a portion of our soul on the other side as a means to guide us, as a means to help us and stay connected to the other side. You have left a larger part of your soul on the other side in order for you to be able to still survive in a physical body, although every single part of your soul is still whole and complete in and of itself. So the amount of energy that you exude in your energy field can often be too much for people, especially if they're not ready to experience that energy field or that particular energy.
I know a lot of people feel threatened by me, not because I do anything. I think is what you're saying, maybe the energy.
Yes, it is hard to see energies that are so much bigger and brighter. It shines a light on a lot of their deficiencies, which is why they have a tendency to shy away from you. But it is not your job to dim your light in order to help them to feel better.
Needed to hear that. Thank you.
You're welcome. So your boys went through a rough start because of this. They went through the rough start because they needed to be able to feel and experience your energy in order to have that firsthand knowledge of the template, all of those 12 million colors that we're talking about. It was your energy that also gave them a boost. So when they were on the verge of not being able to survive, you lent them your energy in order to help them survive until they could sustain on their own.
Yeah, I always thought so.
Mm-hmm.
That it was my energy that kept them alive.
Yeah. The 19-year-old and the 18-year-old are doing well in terms of their own energy. They're sort of taking that template and they're making it their own. And I'm seeing the 16-year-old is still moving closer to mommy's arms, still very much needing the help and the shelter of mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hearing that he may not admit it, but it is true that he still needs it. He's almost showing the template to me and saying, I don't know what to do with this. His soul has forgotten what he was supposed to do with it. And I'm getting chills all over my body right now. So like what they're saying is how you can help him is just tell him that he needs to explore his own path and really discover what makes him happy and what really lights him up inside. And if he's able to follow that path, then the template that you have given him will unfold in a way that is unique for him. If you're in somebody's energy field, whether it's a positive experience or otherwise, while you're in that person's energy field, you feel it and you feel connected to that energy. Mm-hmm. And then when you separate, when you go into different spaces, so let's say the person leaves your house and goes to their house or does something else, like that energy field sort of dissipates and you no longer have that energy in your field. He is fully staying in your energy field and he is like, yeah, I don't think I want to leave. I think I'm just going to stay in mom's energy field because it's easier that way. If he continues to stay in your energy field, he's not going to be able to continue to figure out his own path that he has chosen. This is not something that needs to happen now, but it is something to keep an eye on for the future. Okay?
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Is there anything specific you wanted to ask about any of your three kids?
The eldest, it's always been what many would describe the perfect child, but too perfect for his own good. I always push him to find that he needs to be gentler with himself and learn to see the beauty in everything and gentle. I'm afraid if he doesn't find that bit, he will never be truly happy. How do I help him on that? The second one, he's like a roller coaster, always getting into issues of all the things that all mothers may fear, but I see that he's his soul explorer and he can't help it. That I don't want to diminish that light, but I keep having this thing in my heart if he's going to end up being a train wreck at some point if he doesn't find a bit more balance. And the one, as you said, he needs to get his act together and figure out if he wants to take the next step, which is a discussion we've been having because he's stalling. Am I correct in the appreciation and how do I help them?
You are correct. And the guidance for your eldest is to help him see that he has more than one choice. I'm seeing him move forward on his path and very confidently on his path, might I add. He's very confident about where he's going and what he's doing and everything else. And it's very almost regimented. He hasn't figured out how to use the template that you've given him. And he hasn't seen that there are other ways to do things, that there are other options, there are other even slight differences in how you can look at something. And so what they're saying is that you can help him by planting seeds and not necessarily ideas, because he's not going to be receptive to ideas. He would be receptive to concepts. And there's a very big difference in those two things. As an example, let's say he is saying that I want to go into this field of work. And you see that as, well, I don't know if that's what he's meant to do. Like maybe he's meant to do something else. And you want to make a suggestion of, well, maybe you should do this thing instead. He's not going to be necessarily receptive to that, but he would be receptive to a concept that would be something like, why don't you write down all of the things that you would want out of a dream job or out of a dream career or something like that? Write down all of the things, and it doesn't matter how nonsensical it is, just write them down and see what comes up for you. Like, what do you love doing? On a day-to-day basis, what do you love? And maybe he's going to write down a whole bunch of things that don't even connect and make any sense. But that's okay, because that's going to be enough for him to start thinking a little bit outside of where he is focused on. Okay? Mm-hmm. So you see the difference between those two things, between like making suggestions and making suggestions of concepts.
Yeah, totally. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. For the middle child, that is a result of him pulling away from your energy field. So basically, the youngest one is looking at the middle child going, oh, crap. If that's what happens when I leave mom's energy field, I don't want to do that because that looks like it's horrible, right? And this is not a physical thought that either one of them are having. This is an energetic thing. They're looking at each other and the middle child is saying, oh, God, no, this sucks. I can't find my way without the shelter of mom's energy. He's trying to break free in every way that he can, and he doesn't know how to do it. It's almost like he's falling off a cliff. So it's like he's getting out of mom's energy and then falling off a cliff, and he doesn't know what to do. He's gonna have to find his equilibrium, and he's gonna have to find it on his own. Of course, give him guidance as you see fit as a mother. That is something you can absolutely do and will help. Your wisdom as a person, your wisdom as a soul, you can share that with him. He needs to find his own way, though, because if he continues just finding it within the shelter of you, then he will just continue to be in this roller coaster. And in order for him to get out of the roller coaster, he needs to find it on his own.
Makes sense.
And that might be a little painful for you sometimes because you might have to watch him fall a few times. And they're saying to me, you already have watched him fall a couple of times already.
Yeah, I have. But I needed to let him.
Yeah, exactly. He will find his equilibrium, though. And I'm getting chills right now as I'm saying this. He will find it, not to worry. And it won't take terribly long. I'm hearing roughly about 4 years, and he'll start to come out of it. And your youngest is just sort of sitting back and like observing and seeing if it's possible. And that journey between the two of them will actually help the youngest understand how to gracefully take this beautiful energy that you've given them and move forward in his life. And your youngest is going to do it more gracefully than the middle child did, but simply because he's going to learn from him.
Okay. Will he take long to figure himself out?
Your youngest?
Yeah.
He won't. He's going to hang on longer though. He's going to hang on longer to mom. It's almost like almost like a koala bear. I'm seeing him like clinging to your energy. He's not going to leave until he's sure that he can take the leap. And then once he does take the leap, he's going to see that he's supported and that his energy is good. And then he's going to have that confidence and he's going to be able to move forward.
I have one question. I have seen that my 3, I call them my babies, are very wise and they're able to see through many things. What I have sensed, and I hadn't realized, that a lot of the possibly roller coaster situations that my middle one has gone through is that he's not accepting his gifts and that he hears voices and he's a medium and he even doesn't grasp it, doesn't accept it, and is part of, he's running away a bit from that, or is just running away from me.
You are absolutely correct in your assessment of that. Is he drinking or doing any sort of substances right now?
No, he did at 16.
Okay.
I cut right out. And now he's going through this other phase, totally on the opposite. Well, he's been smoking cigarettes in the past 2 months or month and a half, but he doesn't drink any alcohol and doesn't do any of those things.
The reason why I asked about that is because when you are on certain substances, nicotine can do it as well, not nearly to that degree, but it can sort of dull the senses and allow yourself to not be in that energy of mediumship. Sometimes the reason why people drink or maybe smoke pot or do drugs or things like that, it can be to actually dull those senses because they don't know what to do with them. They are saying that there is an element of this with him that is coming into play. All of your kids have their gifts that are fully available to them at this time. There's a part of this that it's not opening up for them because they need to be fully clear of your energy in order for them to be able to discover their gifts on their own. Your youngest, let's say his gifts fully opened up right now. He would have the assistance of your energy to be able to amplify those gifts. And so then imagine he goes and takes that leap and he gets into his own energy and sort of disconnects from yours. And then all of a sudden his gifts aren't as strong as they were when he was with you. And that's because you amplify each other. And then when he's by himself, he might lose his confidence in those gifts and just think, oh, well, they weren't real anyway. And just kind of brush them aside and not actually cultivate them, because he might chalk it up to just, oh, maybe it was just mom, you know? It's like their souls are kind of holding back a little bit until they are able to fully experience everything that they need to experience on their own terms and in their own energy.
Okay, makes sense.
You had said that all of you have ADHD?
And autism.
Okay. So there is something about this that the guys want to channel some information about. We have been wanting to talk about this for quite some time. There are so many factors that are important to understand about how the human body and the human mind responds to the higher frequencies of energy within the ascension process. There are times when you go through your ascension process effortlessly without any sort of effect on the human body or the human mind. And there are times when you go through your ascension process in which the human mind has to adjust to the changing of energies, the changing of dimensions, oftentimes, the timeline collapsing in each and every moment that you do the work that you are meant to do, and you are able to connect to all of those different timeline potentials. We have mentioned this before in other sessions with other clients, that people with what you call ADHD and autism are all one and the same, in the sense that the reason why they operate in the way that they do is because they have parts of their energy that are still fully on the other side, and their physical body is still getting used to the newness of the energy that their soul has expanded into. Each time you expand, you go through this growth process, or what we would call growing pains. And this is what you have labeled as ADHD and autism. For each person, it is completely different. Some people might have more of their soul on the other side, as you do. And it is because of this that your human brain might have a harder time comprehending and understanding where your energy lies, because the brain does understand the energy that is your soul, that is on the other side, that is not incarnated, and it is still connected. So imagine what it's like to be in a dream state and all of the work that your soul does when you are sleeping. Sometimes it takes a while for you to adjust as you wake up after your soul has been doing all the work that it's been doing. Sometimes it takes a while for you to come back into the body. To know what time it is, to know where you are. And in those brief moments as you are waking, that is what it is like for your mind as your energy is being activated and scattered throughout all the dimensions and timelines. It is the reason why you have the physical symptoms that you do, because you are not fully living in this world. The majority of your soul is living on the other side. And so it is the translation between those two things that creates a disconnect of sorts between the information that you are receiving, your translation of it, and how your body responds to it. All of this is happening while you are still trying to force yourself to live a quote unquote normal three-dimensional life, which does not suit the type of energy that you are. So we always recommend for souls that are struggling with this to move towards the things that they are absolutely guided to, the things that they feel good in, the things that they feel that they're good at, the things that they feel that they can happily exist in both realms and still function in their three-dimensional lives. There are many different explanations for this and many different reasons based on the individual person. But this is the closest we can get to giving you an idea of why this happens and what it is about. It is not something to get rid of. It is simply an adjustment to a change in energy, and it will fade and surpass in time, whether it is in this time of your life or it is the next lifetime.
Thank you.
This is happening. You're welcome. This is happening much more frequently now because more and more people are awakening. More and more people are going through more ascension processes, and they're going through them more rapidly now. And so the amount of catching up that their physical body has to do to the energies is significant. And so give yourself some peace, give yourself some grace and some forgiveness for not being able to necessarily connect in the way that you wanted to connect maybe when you were younger, or maybe do the things that you have wanted to do in your life, but felt you were unable. Operate within the parameters of what you know is good for you, and you will thrive.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I want to thank the Council of Light that came in and gave us that information. I want to thank them for that because it is something that I have addressed with quite a few clients who have come to me and mentioned that they have either ADHD or autism. And I have channeled a few different messages about that, but this is probably one of the more comprehensive ones that they've given me. Thank you, and I appreciate that. How did that resonate for you?
It makes total sense. It's a great explanation. I always knew I was different, weird, and that I didn't feel like other people felt. When I got finally diagnosed, it was like a relief. Now I could somehow explain, although it's the 3D explanation, but explain why I was different. It happened exactly the same to my eldest. The two youngest, it's a different story, but they were in a different place, of course. what I told them and what I really fully believe, that it's her superpower.
Yes.
Of course, everybody has things that they're weaker at, and you just have to live with that. And probably in certain areas, we have bigger challenges. But those gifts that make us different is our superpower, and we should not try to avoid them or negate them, but flourish within them.
100%. Absolutely. That's why they're saying that your connection to the other side is so strong that it does make it difficult to function in this world sometimes. But it's something that you can tap into. Like, you can tap into that energy that is still on the other side and help you, guide you, right? Mm-hmm. Connect to your energy, connect to your soul as much as you can. And you can always have a conversation and just ask your soul questions and say, hey, what is it that I need to do to move through this situation? Or what messages do you have for me about this situation? So you can work hand in hand with the other part of your soul that's on the other side.
Okay.
Have you been able to connect to your angels, your guides, to your higher self, to your Akashic guide?
To my guides, 2 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Then I've had conflicting messages lately. So one of them is my grandmother, but the other one, I wasn't 100% sure because I thought it like too much of a wow thing. It was Simon Peter the Apostle, but then recently it came, and I'm not 100% sure, and I have to explore further, is that he's not my guide. I was him, and my guide is Jesus, but that was very recently, and somebody opened it for me during a Reiki session that I was teaching, and they saw that, and both our bodies tingled, and then I had another meditation and it was confirmed. And my angels, I've always had a very great relationship with my guardian angel, and I realized like a month ago or 2 months ago, I said, look, I've never known your name. He told me recently. His name is Daniel. And then this week, I managed to sort of connect with the Akashic Records guide. And I'm not 100% sure, but I think his name is Jay, but I'm not 100% sure. I still have to further confirm it.
Okay. What I've seen so far, and obviously this is your own experience as well, so you can connect in and see how this feels for you. In my own experience, my Akashic guide, Akula, is actually a different portion of my soul. So what I have seen in the records is that we all have an Akashic guide, which is the guardian of our Akashic records. And that is a part of our soul that never incarnates. It's the part of our soul that stays on the other side. This version of yourself, which is Jay, and they're saying to me that it's just the name that you got. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that name because it is just a version of you. So actually you can give that part of you whatever name you want. As it pertains to the other part of your soul that's on the other side that is not fully integrated into your body at this time, it is different because the part of your soul that is on the other side that isn't incarnated, that has done all of this work, all of this ascension work, that part of your soul has been incarnated on Earth. It has been part of this gathering of the 12 million colors. And the 12 million colors is sort of a metaphor almost for the amount of experience and the amount of lifetimes that you've lived, okay? And all of the things that you've learned. And they're saying that your connection was correct. Okay, I'm just going to say this, and it's going to sound a little... Actually, I'm not even going to quantify it. I'm just going to say it. Yes, Jesus the man was your guide, but on a soul level, you were actually more advanced than he was.
Wow.
So the reason why people like Jesus, Buddha, all of the what we would call sort of ascended masters, they became famous, so to speak, and they were created as these icons in order to create the template of ascension for people to follow. Because at that time, everybody was starting to get ready as a humanity to be able to start the ascension process as a whole. Now, there are plenty of other souls who started the ascension process way, 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 way before then, and you were one of those souls.
No, when I can, maybe it makes sense now, something how it came out. It came out when a vision of washing the feet, and it was Jesus washing my feet when I was Simon Peter, and it didn't make any sense. And then I went to the Bible and read it. So now it makes sense.
There's always multiple sides to the story, which is who you represent. You represent that truth. So the truth that you are giving is that template. Eventually, he became an ascended master. And I'm curious now, actually, in terms of ascended masters, I'm going to ask the guides, in terms of ascended masters, where does that fall in relation to her soul's journey? I always thought that ascended master was like, you when you got to ascended master, like that was kind of it, like you were kind of done with incarnating on earth. Is that correct? That is correct to an extent, but it is a choice. So if you decide that you no longer want to continue on the ascension process, you can decide to become an ascended master. And that is as far as your soul goes on this particular planet. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you won't go to other planets and learn there or do other things. It's just that for this particular experience on this planet, your soul growth is complete. And every person, every soul is completely different in what that is for them. When Jesus, Buddha, Kuan Yin, all the other ascended masters decided to do this, they had decided to complete their ascension process in order to create that template for others to follow. For example, if she had decided to create the template for others to ascend and complete their ascension, they would never complete it because she is still continuing. She's continuing to refine and refine and refine and refine. And as we said, this is not something that is typically done. She is an overachiever of sorts in that respect. So the template that the Ascended Masters created was something that was achievable and something that could be done by everyone on the planet. Okay, got it. That makes sense. We're going to close the Akashic records. The records are closed. The records are closed. The records are closed. Thank you. Wonderful. How do you feel?
Amazing. This has been, I was really looking forward to it. I was preparing myself. And thank you. It's an amazing present from you, from the guides, from the masters. Super thank you.
You are so, so welcome.
And take care.
Thanks, you too. Bye.
Bye.
I want to thank Aurora for allowing us to record her session for this podcast. There are 3 themes from this episode that I would like to discuss. The first theme is the cyclical nature of soul evolution. The second is following your path and doing what your soul wants you to do, living in the present moment and following the flow of your life. And the third is the spiritual definitions and implications of ADHD and autism. This last topic is incredibly important, and it's something that my guides have been showing me for quite some time now, and I've been waiting for exactly the right time to release this information because I feel like it can help a great many people. So first, talking about the cyclical nature of soul evolution, we are all in these cycles of evolution, and it is important to understand that no matter where you are in your soul evolution, that you are always growing, you are always changing. As it pertains to Aurora's journey, she has been doing this a very, very long time. She has been through many, many cycles of ascension and evolution. Some souls have this need or desire to continue this process of evolution, to continue on this path of creating all of these multifaceted ways of connecting in to the physical 3D planes as well as the other realms, the other dimensions. If your soul is not in that place, if your soul is not one that desires or craves those types of experience, it doesn't mean that your soul isn't doing the things that it needs to do. Every soul journey is completely different. There are plenty of souls I have come across in my experience who don't spend a whole lot of time on Earth because it is important for them not to spend time on Earth because they need to anchor in some of the energies that are on the other side. So this has to do with your soul's purpose and what you are here to do. So I wanted to preface that by saying that if your soul isn't doing multiple lifetimes over and over and over again for millions of lifetimes, that it doesn't mean that you have to do that. It is your soul's choice. When you go through these cycles of evolution for your soul, it is about revisiting the same issues, the same topics, the same subjects, the same experiences, but from a higher perspective. You are always going to get new and more information as you go through the different cycles. So let's say you have one particular scenario. Let's say you have a jealous tendency. Maybe your initial tendency to be jealous is based and rooted in self-loathing or lack of self-confidence or lack of trust. As you evolve, as your soul evolves, as you evolve as a human, when you come back to that feeling of jealousy, does it look different? Does it feel different? Will it disappear altogether at a certain point? And the answer is yes, it will. You will look at it from an entirely new perspective. So while your human self might sit there and feel a feeling of jealousy, you will be able to almost stand outside of yourself and look at it from an observer perspective and say, okay, I know why I'm feeling this right now. It is because I was not given the validation that I needed when I was a child, or whatever that situation was, whatever that situation is that you are working on, that will start coming up again and again and again. And you can look at it in various different ways until you are able to move forward in new energy. And that is basically what Aurora has been doing. She has been fine-tuning and fine-tuning and fine-tuning. And when they started talking about the 200 colors versus the 12 million colors, that's exactly what they were talking about. They were talking about the amount of refining that she has done on her journey. So she might look at jealousy as a multi-pronged emotion from, let's say, 1,000 different ways. Whereas the soul that maybe has not had those experiences maybe only looks at it from 50 different ways. What that also means is that she has probably experienced a lot of challenge in a lot of these incarnations. Because when we have our soul evolution and when we have these ascension processes that come up, we do have to go through a lot of these challenges in order to level up. So she has been going through a lot of various energies in order to ascend as many times as she has. The template that she is giving to the people that she is giving it to is basically allowing them to benefit from the work that she has done. And we do this all the time when we hand templates to people. We experience these things and then we hand the template to somebody else. So let's say they don't necessarily need to go through the difficulty or the hardship that we had to go through in order to learn that lesson. Now, I want to clarify this by saying this doesn't mean on a human level, this is on a soul level. On a soul level, if you learn from a template, you may be able to, let's say, avoid a particular challenge, or you may be able to speed up a particular process of ascension. So this is often talked about in the Twin Flame Collective as well, where there are certain Twin Flame collectives who have been on this journey for a very long time and went through a lot of really big hardships. But what it does is it paves the way for the new for the new wave of twin flames that are coming up, that their ascension processes are much, much quicker. They don't have to go through as many challenges as let's say my wave has to, or somebody else's wave has to. So this is all about helping each other based on the experiences that each soul has had. Now, does that mean, okay, because Aurora went through that process, nobody else ever has to go through that process? No, there are some souls that will still choose to go through the process themselves. But this just allows us to have the information that we are looking for in order to anchor in the next level, if you will, the paving of the road, so to speak, of the next level. So it doesn't preclude you from doing the work that you need to do. It just simply means that it's showing the way. That brings us to our next topic, which is following what your soul wants you to do. When the road is paved for you, when you have these templates, when things all come together, we do have to take a step back a little bit and allow our soul to drive the car. Now, this is really funny because it is a lesson that I am currently in the process of learning. I have been learning how to let go entirely and not completely plan my entire life. I'm learning how to let go and let the universe let all of the things fall into place that need to fall into place. There is an example that I will give you from my life that I'm experiencing right now in this moment. I'm traveling with some friends. As I mentioned earlier in the session, I'm in Puerto Rico, and I was guided when I booked this flight to visit my friend here to not make any plans. Don't book any other flights. Don't book any other excursions. Don't go anywhere. Don't do anything. So for 2 months, I was guided to not plan anything, which that was super, super hard for me because I knew at some point I would not be staying at my friend's place anymore and that I'd have to go somewhere else, but I didn't know where I was going to be going. And so I had to let go and I had to trust that what was going to unfold was going to be for my highest good. And after 3 days of being here, after I landed, all the things started to unfold for me. We all of a sudden were taking a road trip to the west coast of Puerto Rico, and then we were staying with another friend. And then that friend was planning a sailing trip and then invited us to go on the sailing trip. And so now we're going to be doing that. It all just completely unfolded. And I'm still experiencing that in this present moment, where there are certain things I don't know because there are things that I have to book on the back end of this trip. There are places that I will probably go near the end of this trip, but I don't know where that's going to be. And I am starting to be okay with that ability to stay present, to follow my guidance, and to allow things to unfold the way that they are meant to as guided by my soul. The one piece of information that my angels are giving me right now also is that the more you do this, the more you follow your soul and let things unfold before you, the less you're going to have to worry about planning, the less you're going to have to worry about how things are going to turn out. And there is an element of peace that goes along with that, an element of knowing that things will work out, which then compounds the energy and creates a larger manifestation of things working out for you. So in which case, now I'm doing things very last minute because I'm waiting till the very last minute to book anything. That might not always be the case because as you start following your soul, you start to see the little breadcrumbs or the little signs of what you need to do. And you follow that, and then you follow the next one and the next one. And you might find that you're not actually living so last minute anymore because you are fully in the flow of your path. This is something that is relatively new to me because I'm so used to planning my life. But I am really trying to get used to the idea of not having to plan everything. So the next and last topic I would like to address is a really, really important one. And for this topic, I am going to insert another clip from another session My angels and guides have been talking to me about ADHD and autism for a very, very long time. I haven't been fully comfortable to release the information yet, and I knew that it wasn't meant to be released yet because most of the sessions where we did touch on this subject were not comfortable with having their sessions recorded for the podcast. So I knew that the information wasn't ready to be released yet. I also find it interesting that I have a great many people in my life who have ADHD and or autism, and to the point where I was actually questioning whether or not I did as well. I have since sort of figured out that it is unlikely that I am in that exact space. But once you understand the definition of what ADHD and autism are from a spiritual perspective, you will start to see that it has nothing to do with how you were born or your brain capacity or your ability to fit into society. It has everything to do with your unique soul and the journey that you are on. So I'm going to let you listen to that clip now. And then once the clip is done, I'm going to come back and we're going to discuss a little bit further about this topic.
Anxiety diagnosed as such because they have a longevity of trauma and energy that has not been dealt with. If you can imagine that it's just been compounded upon over the course of a lifetime, or maybe even many lifetimes, that if you have this constant anxiety, it is something that has just perpetuated, and it's like a moving object. When you think about the laws of physics, an object in motion stays in motion, and an object at rest stays at rest. If you have had this object of anxiety that has constantly been in motion for however long you can remember, there hasn't been anything that has been able to stop it. There hasn't been anything that has been able to move into that space to try to move through it, to try to make the anxious less. It is why oftentimes people will turn to medication to help them with that stopping. The problem with the medication, though, is that some people just take the medication and then just rely on the medication, as opposed to taking the medication and then allowing that to be the reprieve that you need in order to go back and work through why you have the anxiety, to then, in fact, remove the anxiety from your experience altogether. It is possible. It is the same thing with ADHD. It's interesting that this concept keeps on coming up because Annette is very curious about ADHD because she has many clients who have it. Her mother has it. Many of her friends have it. And it is something that is being diagnosed more and more as things progress in terms of spiritual awakening. And the reason why ADHD is such a problem with where people currently are in their lives is because it is an energy that is shifting, and the energy that is shifting is not congruent with where they have been and where they're going. It's an in-between point. If you will, almost every single person on this planet will have been diagnosed or undiagnosed, as it were, as having ADHD at some point in their spiritual journey. It is a shift in the energy. If you look at some of the symptoms of ADHD, one is not being able to focus. One is having hyperfocus. One is not being able to complete a task. One is able to be absolutely focused on one particular thing and excel at that one particular thing. Another symptom is losing time, not being, quote unquote, on time for things. When you think about when you're in meditation, how often do you pay attention to time? Time doesn't exist in the quantum realm, so you lose time. This is information that Annette doesn't know yet. This is information we are giving for the first time. ADHD is not something to take a pill for and just forget about. It is something just like anything to move through. If you need to take a pill in order to alleviate the symptoms, that is something that can be done. There are also things that are problematic because society works on timetables and schedules and deadlines. And when you're finally moving into the ascended portion of your life, having deadlines and calendars and time scheduling things becomes a little bit more difficult because it's not something that you necessarily want to do, because if you're letting your soul lead your life, you are able to not only live in the present moment, but then also understand that your life will simply unfold in front of you. Society, unfortunately, is not set up for this yet. And so it flies in the face of everything that society is. There will come a time at some point in the future where people will cease to have schedules. People will cease to have calendars. People will cease to schedule things way ahead of time. They will just live in the moment. They will live the way that they are meant to move forward on their soul's journey in a seamless and symbiotic way. People who have ADHD struggle with living that way and living in the scheduled world that we currently find ourselves in. There are things that can be done for people who have ADHD, or what you would call ADHD. We don't call it that. We say that it is simply a particular period of time of transition on your spiritual journey. And sometimes it can last lifetimes. It can last more than one lifetime, and it can be challenging. But we suggest that you make your own rules. Don't try to make yourselves or your kids or anyone else fit into the rules of society if they don't fit into them. The problem with what has happened in the past is that it has created this feeling that there is something wrong with somebody who has, let's say, autism or ADHD or anything on that particular subject. And in fact, there's nothing wrong with anybody who has any of these things. Part of their journey, it's part of where they are. What they're telling me is that there has to be a way forward that allows each person to be themselves as an individual. They're saying to me that that's why homeschooling is becoming so much more popular at this time, because that allows a parent to really teach their child in a way that they know their child can learn, and that is going to be helpful for them.
I want to thank my client, you know who you are, for allowing me to use just this little clip of our session. I know she didn't want us to use the entire session because she wanted to remain completely anonymous. But I did ask her permission to use this specific clip from our session. And she did agree that it was important information to get out there. So I do thank this client for allowing me to use this clip. Both channelings about ADHD really touch on the aspects of ADHD that are rooted in the spiritual, rooted in the transition of your old energy to the new energy, what we call the ascension process. And sometimes when we make these transitions, it can be uncomfortable. It can be uncomfortable to have one foot in the old and one foot in the new. And that's essentially what my angels were channeling. That's essentially what we were talking about, which is having your energy be in two places at once. Maybe some of your energy is more in other dimensions, in other places, in other timelines. And then maybe some of your energy is here in the 3D trying to make sense of it all. And based on the percentages of those things can sort of identify the strength of physical symptoms that you might feel. So we did talk about in Aurora's session about how much of her soul was on the other side, since her soul was so big, and how much of her soul is here on Earth. And because she has such a huge energy field, the percentage of that would likely be something like a 20-80 split. So 20% of her soul is in her body. Let's say 80% is on the other side. And so if you have 80% of your soul on the other side operating in those beautiful energies, and then the other 20% is trying to operate in this human body with all of these human-made rules, with all these schedules, with all of the planning, with all of the time, with all of the constructs that we have created for ourselves, you can imagine how difficult that can be. So it can really depend on how much of your soul is on the other side, how much you are ascending, how quickly you're ascending, All of these factors can be factors in, let's say, the severity of your ADHD or autism. Now, I've focused more on ADHD because it is something that my angels have given me more information on. I haven't checked in as much with autism, but they do seem to lump the two together in terms of the reason for the experiences that one might have as a human with their soul going through the ascension process, with their soul being on the other side, in addition to being in the physical human body. When religious texts talk about omniscience, it's a little bit about what they're talking about. It's a little bit what they're talking about, which is when you have a really large energy field, when you've expanded and ascended so much that your energy field is enormous, you do have the ability to be in many places at once. If you consider, let's say, archangels, there are many of us that work with archangels. And how is it that we can all work with archangels? Well, it's because their energy can be in many places at once. Whereas, let's say, our energy, or let's say our crossed over loved ones. I know, for example, my father, when he comes to visit, if he's visiting my sister, he's not necessarily with me. He's in one place or another. So it really just depends on how big your energy field is and how much work you've done, how much time you've spent on the planet, how many different lifetimes you've had, and what your soul purpose is. So you can see how it's a very complicated subject to really talk about, because we put these labels, as the channel said, we put these labels of, well, you have ADHD or you have autism, and it's not something you have. It is something you are experiencing. And you're experiencing it because of the shifts and changes you're making in your energy. And so it's something that you can absolutely work with. You can absolutely use as a superpower, like Aurora said, as long as you don't compare it against what society tells you you're supposed to be. So start making your own rules. Start working with your soul and your angels and asking them, what am I to do with these new superpowers? Or with these superpowers that I've had my whole life? What am I to do with them? What is the most efficient use of these superpowers? Your soul will guide you. Your soul will tell you what you are here to do. Or maybe you're not here to do anything in terms of that. Maybe this is your transition lifetime in terms of going from one ascension process to the next. And maybe you need to rest. Maybe your job is to rest. So pay attention to what your soul is telling you about how you move through the world, how you connect to the world, how you connect to yourself, how you connect with others. And know that so many more people are going through this than you could ever imagine, especially now, with so many people awakening and going through their ascension process. It is something that is a beautiful thing to experience, to move into a new energy, to expand your energy. And that includes all of the growing pains that we go through in the process. I'm sure that there is a lot more on this subject that can be discussed, that can be channeled. And I'm fairly certain that I will get some guidance from my guides again regarding this topic, but I'm going to leave it here for now. And if you have any questions, I would be absolutely happy to do another episode, like a Q&A episode on this topic specifically. And you can reach me through my website. You can fill out the form, the contact form, and you can write your question there. If I get enough questions, I'll compile them and I will do a Q&A episode regarding this topic. Thanks so much. It's been a pleasure connecting with you today. Make sure you stay tuned next week for another new episode.
If you're enjoying this podcast, it would be really amazing if you could like, share, and subscribe. Wherever you listen to podcasts, whether it's Apple or Spotify, feel free to give it a review if you feel called. If you are following me on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you are notified for every single new episode of the Akashic Recordings. If you feel called to book a session with me, you can always reach me at infinitesoullove.com, and you can book directly on my website. Thank you so much for all of your support, and I can't wait to connect with you next week.